The silver chain slipped from Ji-Hoon's hand and hit the polished table with a sharp clink. The room went silent, every executive frozen mid-gesture, every lawyer holding their breath. Across from him, Madame Baek Sunyeon's eyes were sharp and cold. She didn't flinch. She never did. "You will withdraw from this partnership," she said, calm but cutting, "or you will withdraw from this family."
Ji-Hoon's chest tightened.
His heartbeat pounded, as if it could be heard by everyone in the room. 12 years collapsed into one moment as he looked down at the silver chain, worn smooth by fingers that had held onto it through seasons of waiting. "She never took it off," he said quietly. "Neither did I." The tension in the room was unbearable, but he didn't look away. Harsh fluorescent lights buzzed over the cafeteria of Eonjin Global Academy 12 years earlier. Students shouted and laughed in a dozen different languages. Trays clattered and shoes squeaked across the floor. Ji-Hoon walked through it all like a ruler drawn across the chaos. 12 years old, tie straight, shirt pressed, expression perfectly controlled. The Baek name demanded attention even here. Then someone ran into him. Cold juice spilled over his uniform. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," the girl blurted, her hands flailing as she grabbed napkins. "I wasn't looking. I trip all the time when I'm nervous. Or excited. Or, honestly, always." Ji-Hoon froze, staring at her. She was new, smiling too easily, moving too freely. Her hair was braided, but loose curls framed a face that seemed impossible to hide what she felt. "It's fine," he said stiffly. She studied him. "You look like you're about to report me to the principal." "I wasn't," he said. "I'm Zainab," she said, holding out her hand. "Ji-Hoon," he replied after a pause. "That tracks," she said with a bright grin. "You look like a Ji-Hoon." Something stirred in his chest that he didn't recognize. Days passed. Lunches together became conversations. Conversations became stolen laughs behind library shelves. Zainab talked constantly about Lagos, her father's architectural principles, her dream that buildings should feel alive.
Ji-Hoon listened.
He had never spoken like this before, never felt like someone cared about what he thought. One afternoon, she kicked her legs back and asked, "So, what do you want?" "I don't know," he said automatically. She frowned. "Not what your family wants. You." He swallowed. "I don't know." "That's okay. You'll figure it out," she said softly. For the first time, he believed someone meant it. That night at the Baek ancestral house, the walls seemed to close in. Madame Baek Sunyeon sat at the head of the table, her spine straight, her eyes calculating. "You have been distracted," she said. "I'm still top of my class," Ji-Hoon replied. "That is not the point," she said, her gaze piercing. "There is a girl." His stomach dropped. "She does not belong in our world. She brings disorder and emotion," she continued. "She's just a friend," he said quickly. Silence followed, heavy and suffocating. "You will end it," she said. "Or your father will." That night, Ji-Hoon lay awake staring at the ceiling. For the first time, obedience felt like a cage. Rain fell the day Zainab told him her father was being transferred. She clutched her backpack strapped tightly. "My dad's moving back to Ashbourne City," she whispered. 2 weeks, Ji-Hoon said. His voice shook slightly. "I tried to fight it," she said. He didn't cry. Baek men didn't cry. But when he removed the silver chain from around his wrist, his hands trembled. "My grandmother will destroy me," he said quietly. "But I don't care." Zainab's eyes widened. "Ji-Hoon, this is family," he finished. "I know." He pressed it into her palm. "Take it." She hesitated, then fastened it around her wrist. Tears slipped down her cheeks. "I'll wait," he said, voice breaking. 10 years.
20.
Forever. She rested her forehead against his. "Then I'll wait too. However long it takes." The airport was chaos. People cried, shouted, rushed to gates. Ji-Hoon stood frozen as Zainab stepped backward toward the terminal, eyes locked on his. "Don't forget me," she said. "Never," he said. She turned away and didn't look back. Something inside him hardened that day. Years passed. Late nights studying, Discipline sharpening into obsession, silence replacing laughter. Every achievement tasted hollow, yet he pressed on. Heartbreak didn't break him. It forged him. By 25, Baek Ji-Hoon stood before the cameras as the youngest CEO in Baek Consortium history. Applause thundered, but it barely registered. His heart had never left Ashbourne City. When the expansion plans were announced, his breath caught. Because some promises do not fade. They wait. And stepping into that city would change everything. Baek Ji-Hoon stepped off the private plane into Ashbourne City. The air smelled different, slightly humid, faintly of ocean, and unmistakably foreign. He had imagined this day for 12 years, but the moment his eyes landed on the streets where Zainab once walked, his chest tightened. He adjusted his tie and looked at the project site. Skyscrapers rose, cranes moved like mechanical birds, and in the distance, the office of Okoye and Partners studio gleamed, glass reflecting the late afternoon sun. His heart skipped. She was here. He walked toward the building, each step heavier than the last. Inside, the office was modern, minimal, yet alive with energy. Architects moved in coordinated chaos, discussing blueprints, sketches, and models. Then he saw her. Zainab Okoye. Taller than he remembered. Strong, confident, graceful. Her hair braided neatly, sharp eyes scanning a set of plans. She looked up, and their eyes locked. For a second, time stopped.
Yeah?
Her voice trembled slightly, though she tried to hide it. I never stopped looking for you, he said, stepping closer. His hands trembled, but he kept them at his sides. She smiled, uncertain, then laughed softly. You actually came. I promised, he whispered. I always keep my promises. They talked quietly for a moment, their conversation a mix of laughter and hesitation. Then, a man stepped into the office. Mr. Baek, said Choi Min-jae, Ji-Hoon's childhood friend and now legal strategist. I'll handle the meetings. You should speak with Zainab.
Ji-Hoon nodded.
He had counted on Min-jae. Loyal, smart, but morally gray. Willing to bend rules, bend truths, and manipulate situations to protect him. He was a helper Ji-Hoon could trust, though not blindly. Zainab, Ji-Hoon said, motioning to the plans on her table. This project, I want us to do it together. She looked down at the plans, then back at him. You know this isn't just business, right? There are family rules, politics, expectations. Your grandmother.
Ji-Hoon flinched.
I don't care. Not anymore. Her eyes softened. I didn't think you'd ever say that. Before they could continue, the office door opened again. Dr. Ade Okoye, her father, appeared. His expression was calm, but his eyes carried tension. Zainab, he said firmly, you need to focus on the firm. There are new investors arriving tomorrow.
Ji-Hoon's jaw tightened.
The man had always acted as if he was protecting his daughter, but Ji-Hoon could sense the hidden motive, the subtle negotiation behind every decision, the agreement that had forced their separation years ago. Ade Okoye had agreed to the transfer for her own good. Now, that barrier remained, silent but present. I know you're here, Dad, Zainab said, her voice steady. But this project, it matters to me. I understand, he replied carefully. But don't let old promises cloud your judgment. Ji-Hoon's heart sank slightly. Old promises, indeed. Later that evening, Ji-Hoon and Zainab walked through the streets of Ashbourne City. Neon lights reflected on wet asphalt, umbrellas crowded the sidewalks, and the hum of traffic filled the air. I still wear it, she said suddenly, touching the silver chain on her wrist. Every day. Ji-Hoon stopped, his chest tight. I never let it leave my side either. They laughed softly, but there was tension underneath, unspoken. Family expectations. Cultural differences. The weight of 12 years lost. As they reached the hotel, Min-jae called Ji-Hoon. You need to see this, he said. Your grandmother is already in the city. She's attending the investor dinner tonight. Ji-Hoon's chest tightened further. Every step he had taken towards Zainab now carried the risk of collision, his loyalty to love versus his family duty. The dinner began. Madame Baek Sunyeon's presence was imposing. She wore elegance like armor, her gaze scanning every corner of the room. She noticed Ji-Hoon immediately, then followed his eyes toward Zainab. Recognition flickered, then calculation. After a tense exchange, she approached them. "Ji-Hoon," she said, voice controlled but sharp. "You know why I am here." "I do," he replied. "You can't mix business and emotion," she said. "Zainab is not part of this family, not part of this world." "And yet," Ji-Hoon said, voice low but unwavering, "she is part of my life, and I choose her." For a moment, the room felt suspended. The collision of family and desire, duty and love, compressed the air around them. Madame Baek Sunyeon's lips tightened. "You think your stubbornness can rewrite tradition?" "I know my stubbornness is nothing compared to my love," Ji-Hoon replied. Zainab reached for his hand. Their fingers intertwined, a silent rebellion. The first collision point had occurred. The stakes had escalated from personal longing to direct confrontation with family power. Every decision now carried consequences, emotionally, professionally, and culturally. The next day, at a cafe near Zainab's office, Ji-Hoon and Zainab sat across from each other, plans between them.
She leaned in.
"I never expected you to be here," she admitted. "I always knew I would be," he said. "I've built everything, endured everything for this moment." She paused. "But what about your grandmother? The consortium? Everything you've worked for?" "I'll face it," he said firmly. "If this project succeeds, it's ours. If it fails, I lose everything, but I can't lose you again." Zainab smiled faintly. "You always make it sound so simple."
Ji-Hoon hesitated.
"It's not simple," he said.
"I'm terrified."
"And I am too," she replied. They laughed softly, tension easing, but the stakes remained. Min-jae arrived with news. "Investors are anxious. Dr. Okoye has questions. Your grandmother expects updates tonight. You can't delay."
Ji-Hoon nodded.
The helper was a reminder that even loyalty has a price. Zainab looked at him. "Whatever happens, we face it together." If you're already hooked by this story, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next part of Ji-Hoon and Zainab's journey. And comment below, would you wait 12 years for your first love? Tension was escalating everywhere. Family expectations, cultural pressures, and past betrayals collided with professional stakes. Ji-Hoon had entered Ashbourne City chasing love, but every step forward now forced him into impossible choices. Helper Min-jae's loyalty would be tested. Dr. Ade Okoye's subtle manipulations would surface. Madame Baek Sunyeon's influence threatened both hearts and careers. Every decision Ji-Hoon made carried consequences. Every hesitation was a potential disaster. The morning air in Ashbourne City carried the faint smell of rain and concrete as Ji-Hoon arrived at the project site. Every floor, every blueprint, every decision now felt like a battleground. He walked past workers, nodding silently, heart tight. Zainab was already there, examining a large structural model. Her brow was furrowed, lips pressed together, but when she saw him, a faint smile appeared. "Morning," she said, trying to sound casual. "Morning," he replied. His voice was steady, but inside, nerves pulsed like electricity. Before either could speak further, Dr. Ade Okoye approached, face neutral, hands behind his back. "I've been reviewing the project schedule," he said. "Some deadlines are aggressive. I hope your team can handle it." Ji-Hoon felt his chest tighten. "We'll handle it. We always have." Dr. Okoye's gaze flicked to Zainab. "I just want to make sure you're not distracted." Zainab's jaw tightened. "I'm not distracted." Ji-Hoon wanted to speak, to snap at him, but Min-jae's hand on his shoulder reminded him to stay calm. The betrayer had not acted openly, but the subtle tension, the whisper of influence, was enough to turn decisions into traps. That evening, Ji-Hoon met with Min-jae at a quiet corner of the office. "She's under pressure," Min-jae said, voice low. "Her father's playing the protective angle. Your grandmother is already maneuvering investors behind your back. Every step you take is being watched." "I know," Ji-Hoon said. "But I can't stop now." "I won't." Min-jae hesitated. Just be careful. Your love is strong, but it's also visible. People can use it against you. I'm ready to pay the cost, Ji-Hoon said, determination burning in his chest. Collision Point 2 came sooner than expected. Investors gathered for a review, and Madam Baek Sun-yeon entered, her presence immediately freezing the room. She walked straight to Ji-Hoon and Zainab. Your choices are reckless, she said, voice slicing through the murmurs. Do you know what's at stake? Ji-Hoon met her gaze. I know exactly what's at stake. My life, my company, my heart. And I won't compromise my heart again. She froze for a fraction of a second, then turned to Zainab. And you, young woman, know nothing of our ways. You have disrupted what generations built. Zainab squared her shoulders. I have disrupted tradition because I believe in honesty, in partnership, and in love. Nothing else matters. The tension was unbearable. Every investor shifted uncomfortably, aware of the personal stakes now colliding with business stakes. Ji-Hoon's decision to include Zainab in the project was not only a business move, it was a declaration of love. The clash forced Ji-Hoon into an impossible choice: prioritize his family and risk losing Zainab, or embrace love and risk losing his career. He chose love. Later that night, Zainab and Ji-Hoon sat alone in the studio. She ran her fingers over the ancestral silver chain. You don't have to do this, she said softly. You've given up so much already. I promised, Ji-Hoon said, voice low. And promises are the only thing that keep me human. I can't give this up, us. Tears welled in her eyes.
I'm scared.
I've waited so long, but now it feels like we're surrounded. Everyone is trying to pull us apart. He reached across the table, taking her hands. Then we fight together, no matter what. Days later, Dr. Ade Okoye revealed his secret. He had been negotiating privately with Madam Baek Sun-yeon, pressuring Zainab's involvement in the project. I did it to protect you, he said, eyes heavy with regret. I never wanted to hurt you. Zainab felt a mixture of betrayal and anger. You manipulated me. You made decisions for me for 12 years. And now you're pretending it was love. Ji-Hoon stood beside her, silent but furious. He realized that even those who claim to protect love can sometimes become its enemies. Min-jae leaned in. It's a trap. But if you handle it right, you can turn it to your advantage. Ji-Hoon clenched his fists. The helper was morally gray, willing to skirt ethics, but right now, Ji-Hoon needed that. He couldn't afford to play fair. Not yet. At this point, the stakes escalated. Relationships under siege. Zainab's trust shaken by her father. Family expectations. Madam Baek Sun-yeon manipulating investors. Business consequences. The project at risk if Ji-Hoon faltered. Every decision intensified tension, and every hesitation threatened disaster. Zainab and Ji-Hoon walked in the rooftop garden that evening. The city lights twinkled below, distant and indifferent. Do you ever wonder if we made a mistake? Zainab whispered.
Edo, Ji-Hoon admitted.
Every day. But I can't live without this, without us. Even if the world stands against us, I choose you. She smiled faintly. Then I choose you too, no matter what it costs. If you're enjoying Ji-Hoon and Zainab's journey, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next twist in their story. And comment below, what would you do if your family opposed your true love? The night ended with Ji-Hoon standing on the balcony, looking over Ashbourne City. The first collision had tested his courage. The second had tested his heart. And he knew more challenges were coming. Some choices would hurt. Some betrayals would sting. But one thing was clear. Love was not a safe path. It was the only path worth taking. The story of Ji-Hoon and Zainab was far from over. The following weeks were a storm. Every meeting, every boardroom discussion, every investor interaction carried tension. Ji-Hoon and Zainab were constantly tested, and each test pushed them further, challenging their love, their trust, and their patience. Madam Baek Sun-yeon's influence was relentless. Every investor question, every media inquiry seemed designed to remind Ji-Hoon of the weight he carried. She was a master strategist, using tradition as a weapon. Then came the third collision point. Ji-Hoon discovered that Dr. Okoye had secretly met with his grandmother to discuss removing Zainab from the project entirely. The betrayal was subtle, legal, and invisible to the public eye. But Ji-Hoon felt the sting immediately. Why, after all these years? Ji-Hoon demanded later in the office, gripping the silver chain tightly. Ade looked pained. I wanted to protect her. I never wanted to hurt either of you. But your grandmother, she has power. I thought if I negotiated, it would prevent worse consequences. Zainab stepped forward, eyes blazing. You made decisions for me my whole life. You thought you could control my heart, my choices. Ji-Hoon exhaled, trying to steady his racing heart. He looked at her, and despite the anger and pain, he saw determination. She was no longer the young girl he had met in Seoul. She was a woman who could stand beside him, not behind him. Then we decide together, he said. No one else controls this. From that moment, everything shifted. Ji-Hoon and Zainab worked as a united front. Min-jae maneuvered the legal and corporate intricacies quietly, giving them room to reclaim control. The investors, sensing the strength of their partnership, began to align with their vision. The final confrontation came during a high-profile investor dinner. Madam Baek Sun-yeon arrived, poised as ever. But this time, Ji-Hoon did not flinch. He stood tall beside Zainab, hand lightly touching hers, a silent declaration. You've grown, Sun-yeon said softly, almost admiringly. I've had to, Ji-Hoon replied. Love is worth more than fear. Zainab smiled. And worth fighting for. The tension broke. Investors nodded. Sun-yeon's shoulders relaxed ever so slightly. Even Dr. Ade Okoye looked at them differently, realizing that her strength and Ji-Hoon's persistence had changed everything. Months later, Ji-Hoon and Zainab celebrated their wedding, a blend of Korean and African traditions. The ceremony was beautiful, the warm reds and golds of the Baek heritage intertwined with the vibrant colors of Zainab's roots. Family and friends watched as two cultures, two hearts, and two lives merged into one. 3 years after the wedding, Ji-Hoon and Zainab had 2 children. Their home was filled with laughter, warmth, and the everyday chaos of life. Ji-Hoon continued to lead the Baek consortium, but his decisions were no longer dictated by fear or tradition. They were guided by love, integrity, and partnership. Zainab's career flourished too. Okoye and Partners Studio expanded internationally, often collaborating with the Baek consortium. Together, they built not just skyscrapers and investments, but a life that embodied patience, endurance, and true love. The story had changed Ji-Hoon. He was no longer the rigid, disciplined boy who had met Zainab in a Seoul cafeteria. He was a man who had endured separation, betrayal, and family opposition, and emerged with his heart intact, stronger and wiser. Zainab had changed too. She was no longer just a free-spirited girl. She had become a woman who could challenge power, assert her vision, and embrace love without compromise. Together, they proved that some promises do not expire. That love can survive time, distance, and opposition. That every sacrifice, every year of waiting, was worth it. If this story touched your heart, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell. Share your thoughts in the comments. Would you wait 12 years for someone you truly loved, no matter the obstacles? Your opinion matters, and we want to hear it. Years later, Ji-Hoon often held the ancestral silver chain, now worn smooth by both his and Zainab's hands over time. He looked at their children playing in the garden and reflected on the journey. Every challenge had been a choice. Every heartache had been a test. And every decision, no matter how difficult, had shaped their story. He glanced at Zainab. She met his eyes with a smile that said everything. True love doesn't expire. It waits. It endures. It fights. And in the end, it always wins. And yet, he sometimes wondered silently, what if love alone is never enough? When the world pushes back, will the heart's promise always hold? That question lingered, Not as an answer, but as a thought that stayed with every person who has ever loved, waited, or hoped.